So earlier today, it was announced that Jalen Ramsey and the Miami Dolphins will be parting ways. It was confirmed by GM Chris Greer that it was in the opinion of him as well as the Dolphins that it would be better off for the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey, for both parties, be better off for them to split and move in different directions. And when we got Jalen Ramsey, it was such a joyous moment to be a Dolphins fan. It was a great point in Dolphins fan history, just in terms of me as a Dolphins fan, not necessarily just that one individual move going out and getting Jalen Ramsey, but really the totality of moves that we saw the Dolphins made in that time frame, going out and getting Tyreek Hill, going out and getting Bradley Chubb, going out and getting Jalen Ramsey. It was clear that the Dolphins were in a win-now mode, and ultimately it didn't work out. Dolphins obviously didn't add another Super Bowl ring, did not really find any postseason success at all, got to the playoffs twice, however, not able to find a single victory in that time. And this Dolphins team now is in a very different position where this Dolphins team was then when we acquired not just Jalen Ramsey, but those other two guys that I mentioned. When the news came out, there was a lot of frustrated Dolphins fans, and I believe rightfully so. It makes a lot of sense to see the reaction from Dolphins fans as to this news here today that Jalen Ramsey is no longer going to be a part of the team. And, especially when you look at Tyreek Hill and what he's done and what the team has had to put up with Tyreek Hill, the fact that he's probably still going to be on the team rubs a lot of fans the wrong way. And again, I can't blame the fan base for that reaction. You have a great player in Jalen Ramsey who is going to be no longer on this team. Meanwhile, Tyreek Hill, while yes, he is still a great player, we've had to put up a lot of crap with him for over the last few months, and it's looking like that's going to continue. It's looking like Tyreek Hill is going to be a member of the Miami Dolphins by the time the season starts. So it sucks getting rid of a good player. It sucks admitting that a win-now team is going to be no longer a win-now team. They're going to be looking at another quote-unquote rebuild from this Dolphins team. So I definitely understand the frustration when it comes to these moves or lack of moves, the move with Jalen Ramsey that is to come, and the lack of getting rid of Tyreek Hill. As Dolphins fans, as a Dolphin fan myself, look, I hate to see good players leave the team, and I hate to see headaches stay on the team, but that is just the reality of the situation. All of that being said, everything that I've addressed so far being said, I do think it is, in a way, the right move for the Miami Dolphins to make. As frustrating as it is, and as much as it sucks to see a great player leave, I do think it's the right move, and I gotta say, I like what GM Chris Greer has been doing. I like what head coach Mike McDaniel, alongside him, assumingly, is doing here over this free agency period, and this continues here with this move. I've said it multiple times here on this channel since free agency has started. It could have been so easy for GM Chris Greer to decide to just push all of his chips in, go all out for this season with a lack of cap space, with a good draft pick. You really could have just gone out there and just push all your chips in and say, you know what? Whatever we got to do to win today, we're going to do it. And that would include keeping Jalen Ramsey. That would have probably led to the Dolphins making some unreasonable spending and going out and getting another big name, another attractive name to appease the fan base by getting that splash free agency signing, where it was what we saw last year, where the team was unable to really correctly address the holes on the roster because of the spending habits the Dolphins have had over the last few off seasons, going out and getting those star players. The money has eventually added up, and we're at a place where this is no longer sustainable to go out and add the stars the Dolphins have done over the last few years. The Dolphins do not have the luxury anymore of having a quarterback on a rookie deal that then allows you to go out and just fill out the rest of your roster. Go get a wide receiver 1 in Tyreek Hill. Go get a cornerback 1 in Jalen Ramsey. In theory, go get an edge piece number 1 in Bradley Chubb, which obviously has not been the case in his situation. However, there was money to be spent, so there was draft picks on the table that you could use as assets rather than picks, and that's what the Dolphins elected to do. That's what Chris Greer elected to do, and look, they whiffed. They missed. They had their window. They had their time where they had to win it in these specific years from 2022, 2023, 2024. Obviously, it's not working. And now the Dolphins, with their horrendous cap situation that saw them this offseason really go out and sign marginal guys that aren't really pushing the needle, and you look at to next season, and it's not going to get any better. You're really looking at that 2027 free agency period where that's when it might be able to get a little bit better for the Miami Dolphins. It's not happening right now. And because of that, it makes sense to get rid of these bigger contracts. It makes sense to move on from a guy who Was he bad last year? No. Jalen Ramsey still is a really good football player. However, he isn't getting any younger now, in his early 30s, and he's definitely not getting any cheaper. The Dolphins signed him to a 3-year, $72 million extension, which sees him onto the team, so I believe the 2028 season, where he'll be 34 years old. That is not very responsible when it comes to the cornerback position, when you're looking at arguably the hardest position in all of sports. At that age, with that contract, you are likely not going to be getting the return on investment at that point from Jalen Ramsey. This is likely going to be the last chance you have to get really good compensation for him, in turn what is an aging roster, an expensive roster, to not a full-on rebuild, because you're not getting rid of the coach, you're not getting rid of the GM, you're not getting rid of the quarterback. A retooling to shift the Dolphins from a team that was in win now to a team that, okay, this year we're not winning the Super Bowl, but maybe next year, if the pieces all fall into place, if we trade away some older assets, if we clear up some capital, some cap space, then maybe we can go forward and push again like we did a few years ago and go get the stars that are on the market this time a year from now or 2 years from now. Chris Greer is on a 1-year contract, basically. Mike McDaniel is pretty much in the same boat, although I would say Mike McDaniel has probably a little bit more of a leeway, as there is still a large contingent of this fan base that believes in Mike McDaniel, and I like to think I'm in that group. When it comes to Tua, I'm split right down the middle. Whatever he is doing today is how I form my opinion of him. With Mike McDaniel, I think he has shown, with good enough tools, with a good enough offensive line, and then weapons out wide, he can get the best out of Tua. He can get the best out of his offense. Now, the defense at times has been a mess, and getting rid of one of the best cornerbacks in football over the last decade is not going to make your defense any better. However, he gets his side of the ball correct. He does what he said he was going to do. He said he was going to come in and fix Tua. He was, quote unquote, thrilled with the idea of having a quarterback like Tua, and give him credit. He has taken the skill sets of Tua, elevated him to get the most out of him, and then in turn elevated this offense to get the best out of it. Now, this last season, with Tyreek Hill with his wrist injury, with the offensive line taking a major step back, with the running game being absolutely abysmal, the offense wasn't great. Is that on McDaniel? Did he not do enough to adjust? Yes, that certainly is a fair point to make, that he did not do enough to adjust on the fly with what he was given. But we know with a good enough offensive line, you give Tua 2 solid wide receivers out wide, he's going to make this offense work. Now, is Tua going to be healthy enough to save Mike McDaniel's job? That is another video for another day. But what I like with Mike McDaniel and also Chris Greer, because he does have really the final say as general manager, they could have so easily decided to keep Jalen Ramsey, keep Tyreek Hill, which it's looking like they're going to anyways, keep a hold of this core and just throw money around and go get some more aging stars to maybe just get the last bit of juice out of them, and get another star, something that's just nice eye candy that doesn't actually fill a need in this team, because this team needs a lot aside from stars. This team needs a third corner. This team needs a second tight end. This team needs a guard or two. All right, these are positions that aren't sexy to the fan base, but ultimately are important to whether you win a Super Bowl or not. The Dolphins are still in that position right now. Let's not get it twisted. The team has not necessarily fixed itself, but what they're doing here is saying, look, we aren't going to win this year. And as a general manager, as a head coach, if you allude to maybe this team can win this year, if you make it seem like that you are putting this team into a position to win right now, which in an ideal world, you're doing that every single year, but we all know that's not the reality situation. As a GM, as a head coach, you are now buying yourself more time by being honest with a situation that, yes, you put yourself in, but it is still the situation nonetheless. You know that with this team, with the given talents, you are probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year. So why hold on to a 30-something-year-old cornerback who is going to get more expensive the older he gets? That is not an equation to win in this league when you're a fringe playoff team like the Dolphins have been the last few years. That is not how you win division titles. That is not how you win Super Bowls, by having an aging talent on your roster eating up a large majority of your cap space when you have glaring holes of the rest of your team. It could have been so easy for Chris Greer to be like, oh, we already have a great player. Let's keep him here. Let's just figure out the rest. Let's throw $10 million at Joey Bosa. Let's throw some money at some other high-profile free agents. Maybe make a trade with our first-round pick. We have really good capital. Will we use this first-round pick on a late 20s wide receiver, on a star running back, somebody that in the short run is going to make this team better, is going to make this team sexier, but is it going to lead to a championship 2 years from now? Is this team in a better position? No, doing those moves would not have made this Dolphins team long-term better. We are no longer in a short-term mode. We have to look beyond this next season, because this next season, there's going to be some ugly moments. If Tua gets hurt, it's going to be really ugly, but even if Tua stays healthy, we saw plenty of games last year where the Dolphins, Cardinals game, Buffalo Bills game, back-to-back games where the offense looks fantastic, but the defensive side of the ball can't hold up. Has the defense gotten any better? No. Has the offense gotten any better? No. Both sides of the ball have regressed because we've seen more players walk on both sides of the ball. And now another one is going to be leaving in Jalen Ramsey. So I can appreciate the honesty from Chris Grier to say, look, we're not winning it all. Why keep an aging star on this roster? I appreciate that, if nothing else, and I appreciate how he's handled this offseason. He could have just tried to save his job, and he's not doing that. Jalen Ramsey is still a good player. He was on a really bad defense last year that at times probably made him look worse than he is as a player. I'm sure he's going to go to another team and have a fantastic season on that team. I texted Donovan earlier today, you are a Baltimore Raven, Jalen Ramsey, because that's in line with moves that the Ravens have made in the past. They've been trying to acquire good cornerback help, aging cornerback help over the last few years, and quite frankly, it hasn't really worked, but it makes sense with what they're doing. They still need help at that position, so I do expect a team like the Ravens, who are a star on defense or just a general really top-end player away from maybe pushing for a Super Bowl. I think you're going to see Jalen Ramsey move on to a really good team, maybe even the Washington Commanders, who got the NFC Championship game last year. That's looking like the reality for where Jalen Ramsey will likely end up. Great player, is going to have another great year probably next year, but I don't want to be paying Jalen Ramsey 2 or 3 years from now $28 million. With the team the way it's set up right now, we got bigger needs, bigger fish to fry. So, you know what? Fair enough, Chris Grier. I think this is the right move. Let me know your thoughts down below, because I know there are a lot of Dolphins fans that disagree with what I've said here. I think as a player, getting rid of a great player is always hard to swallow. It's always a hard pill to swallow, but this is probably the right move at the end of the day. So let me know your thoughts on Jalen Ramsey. Let me know your thoughts on Tyreek Hill still being on the team, because that one, I can't, other than the fact that we're not going to get good compensation back from him, I can't find a way to justify him being on the team. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll catch y'all next time. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.